Welcome, sports fans, to our weekly edition of This Week in Sports. Today we've got a pretty good show for you. We're going to go over some things such as Michael Sam's 40 time, the Jim Harbaugh saga, and we'll start right off with the first topic, and that's Raymond Felton and his gun charges. So the way the story goes is this morning, technically it was kind of last night in people's thinking, but this morning, 12:50-ish a.m., sometime after the Knicks lost, Felton turned himself in to the police on, I think it was 3 gun charges, 2 felonies, and 1 misdemeanor. Reportedly, his wife is the one that turned the gun in, and Felton, New York, man, you can't do that with these weapons. I mean, New York takes their gun laws pretty seriously at this point. For anyone who doesn't live in New York, I happen to live in New York, not the city but the state. Same thing applies to the gun rules here. Thoughts? Joe, I'll let you kick this off first. What are your thoughts on Raymond Felton and his gun debacle?
You know, I'll let our friend Mike get to the Javaris Crittenton allegory in a little bit. After Plaxico Burress, and I forget what year that was, 2010 maybe, but I think we all know, the gun laws are pretty strict in New York. Felton, the Knicks were trying to get rid of him. I know they were looking at one rumor dealing Felton with Shumpert to the Clippers for Darren Collison, something like that. But, Knicks couldn't pull anything together, and, now Felton's probably no longer going to be a member of the team.
California would have been a little nicer on those gun charges.
No lie, absolutely.
Jump right in, Michael.
Raymond Felton. My God. When are people in the city, like anybody New York sports team-wise, when are you going to learn carrying a gun is not going to do anything for you, especially anywhere in the NBA, the NFL. Of course, we already know Plaxico Burress. Will he see jail time for this? It's very possible, considering 2 of these are second-degree gun charge and a third-degree. The misdemeanor is a 4th-degree carrying possession without a license of some sort like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very possible, but since he turned himself in, we're not sure how well that's going to go. But again, if you didn't learn enough from Javaris Crittenton, you might as well learn something from Raymond Felton. But I think another big thing that we're missing here is hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. What did Raymond Felton do to piss his wife off?
Well, reportedly he threatened her with the gun, is what she was saying, or
in that case,
to some capacity,
yeah.
But they weren't.
In that case, yeah, he's screwed.
Yeah, he's done. Yeah, lock him away, throw him. She's probably going to be like, lock him up, throw away the key. I don't know, but I mean, what did she say to make that happen? Did she be like, oh, hey, I'm going to run away with Derek Nowitzki because he hit the game-winning fluke shot? Oh, man, that was – I feel bad for Knicks fans because it's just been a horrible season for them, especially for our man Jason Whitney. Shout out to Jason Whitney right now. He completely dropped the Knicks this morning. He is no longer a Knicks fan, so there's one less in their corner.
He's in a better place now with Portland. God bless Damian
he is
Lillard.
right now. He is right now. But I think
I for one don't allow her to acknowledge that switch.
I think we haven't once more details about this case come into the fray. Things like that. I think we'll better understand the situation. But it's really not a good day to be Raymond Felton right now, or the New York Knicks. I mean, it just keeps getting worse.
And this just in. I'm making this up before you guys jump to conclusions. Raymond Felton's wife, what she did to make him want to threaten her with the gun was she picked on him about his weight. He was saying he was getting sick of that. I mean, you can't do it. So at least back to the realness here. I think the one thing that might work in his favor is the fact that he didn't necessarily pull a Plaxico and discharge the firearm.
And he turned himself in too. Let's not forget he did turn himself in.
He turned himself in, which that always helps in any sort of charges you have against you. If you turn yourself in, that looks better. But at the same time, I mean, at least the gun wasn't fired. In relation to the crime here, the threatening or whatever the hearsay here that we have now from his wife.
And here's the thing, right quick, Andy. I was watching Mike and Mike this morning. They had a thing about it, and they made a very interesting point. Why do professional athletes, let's go back even a little bit to 2009 with Gilbert Arenas and Javaris Crittenton with the gun incident in Washington. with Plexico here in New York with Raymond Felton now. Why do professional athletes feel like they constantly need to carry guns everywhere they go?
Shout out to Steven Jackson.
Aha! Yeah. See, I mean, like, it's kind of a funny, thing to think about. Are they, in trouble? What kind of weird stuff is going on behind closed doors that makes them have to carry guns either with a permit or illegally?
Aaron Hernandez.
It's an image thing. Yeah. Go ahead, Joe. You want to chime in here.
I completely agree with Mike and what he heard on Mike and Mike, and I guess the name Mike is pretty smart.
You can't go wrong with it. Mike is right. I mean,
I just you make this much money, you don't need to be spending it on that stuff. Spend it on the actual security force. What the heck?
Or register your pistols. Like if you want to have pistols, you're allowed to have guns. Yeah, you can. I mean, Raymond Felton went to UNC. I don't think Raymond Felton had any priors. So register your weapons. I mean, come on, buddy. So let's jump into the next topic, which isn't as necessarily as entertaining. I know the media's been shoving Michael Sam's story down your throat for the past few weeks here. We're not going to talk about that stuff. We're more concerned with, the proof that's in the pudding, his actual performance. We're talking about, of course, the NFL Combine. And Michael Sam runs like an atrocious 4.91 in the 40. That was the official. Ugh. And his bench press wasn't anything to shout out about either. So, Michael, what do you think about this Michael Sam, and what does this do for his draft? Before I was hearing like a 3rd round. Joe said before the show maybe a 5th round now. This guy seems like he's tumbling backwards in the wrong direction here.
Well, first off, before anything happened, it was anywhere between a 3rd and a 5th round, and the average sports fan is going to question, hey, this guy was SEC Defensive Player of the Year with 11.5 sacks. How is he now anywhere from 3rd to 5th to now even some are saying 5th to 7th round because of this? I think he ran like a 4.79 and a 4.81 or 2. I think so. I mean, he's not a fluid athlete. His 40 time is just average. It's not spectacular, but it's not a complete and total, crap. I mean, Rich Eisen ran, what, a 5.3, 5.4 in, nice, shoes and a suit. So, I mean, he's not a fluid athlete, and 11.5 sacks are, but 9 of those, 11.5 sacks came against subpar non-SEC opponents. I had a opportunity to watch Sam against South Carolina. He did a decent job of containing Connor Shaw, who is a mobile quarterback who probably could be a very underrated, backup that may eventually be a starter in the NFL. But the whole thing, like I said, he's not a fluid athlete. That's going to, stop some people from taking this guy anywhere, ahead of the 3rd round. 4th, late round guy. But it's not what you do at the Combine. It's what you do in training camp. Is he going to be able to get past all of this, negativity that he's bringing, numbers-wise, at the Combine to training camp, whoever drafts him, and prove to people that where he was drafted was way too low. That's the big thing.
They were already talking about, before this Combine disaster, they were already speaking of how he was undersized to play the D end. He wasn't athletic and fast enough to play the outside linebacker, so that he would, kind of be used as a pass rushing specialist anyways.
Right, a nickel guy, yeah.
Yeah. So, Joe, your thoughts?
I don't know if you guys remember, but a Texas A&M prospect named DeMontre Moore came out. It was either a year ago or 2 years ago, top 10 pick. Came in, same kind of, SEC Defensive Player of the Year candidate, huge sack totals. Goes to the Combine, just craps the bed. Ends up going in the 3rd round to the Giants. And I think that kind of, 2-round drop is what we're going to see with Michael Sam. His teammate from Missouri, Coney Ely, who a lot of people are actually looking at as a 1st-round pick, I want to say he's around 6'5", 275, and he ran a faster 40 than Sam, who's 6'2", 260, supposed smaller, quick pass rusher. He certainly did nothing to help himself, probably hurt him. I don't see him going anywhere before the 5th round, like Andy said, I was saying. It's not looking good for Michael Sam right now.
See, and do we get a little too caught up on the combine? Sometimes I feel like, you can have a great season. And again, I mean, obviously, Michael Sam, we're saying he did this against inferior opponents, and that happens in college football all the time. But sometimes the combine, I feel like it's like break or make, you as an NFL player and as an NFL prospect. Yeah. And sometimes it seems super unfair. I mean, you get one sample of a guy gets, one chance to run, one chance to jump, one chance to bench, this kind of stuff. And it just, sometimes it kills me how much stock we put into the combine.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
And to kind of rebut that, it's a lot the same of the analytics argument in sports. You go to the combine, you get the measurements, you say, holy cow, this guy did really good. I want to go look back at his game tape and see if those elements show up there. Or if you're watching game tape, you say, holy cow, this guy's really jumping out in this area or not looking good. What did he do at the combine? The three-cone drill at the combine is another one that measures a lot of acceleration, which is huge for pass rushers. Michael Sam ran a 7.8 in that, from what I'm seeing. Other top defensive players, Jadeveon Clowney ran a 7.27. Khalil Mack out of Buffalo ran a 7.08. Anthony Barr, a linebacker from UCLA that's also supposed to be a top half of the first-round pick, 6.82. So you're seeing how far off Michael Sam is compared to this stuff. He really did not do any justices to help, and, maybe some teams go back to the tape and say, hey, this guy showed that he's got the pass rushing technique to make some contributions, but, that's not worth more than a late pick on day 3 of the draft.
It's not always speed and strength, though, either. And I think speed sometimes is looked at as way too much of a component when drafting a player, and that's in any sport. I think actually, not just the combine in general isn't really necessarily what I meant to say. The 40-yard dash gets way too much attention. Food for thought for everybody listening, watching. Jerry Rice ran a 4.71 in the 40-yard dash.
Who's that guy?
Yeah, that guy. I mean, we look at speed as being, a wide receiver's best friend. And Jerry Rice, didn't really have. Randy Moss ran like a 4.25. Calvin Johnson was like a 4.32. Moss 4.71, or Rice, was a 4.71. He had a pretty solid NFL career.
Maybe.
We can jump right into something Joe just mentioned, and that's Jadeveon Clowney. So, Michael, I'm just gauging Michael's reaction here right now. So
go for it, bud.
Jadeveon Clowney, obviously highly touted prospect coming into the NFL this year. Defensive end, he's a menace, he's an animal. And actually, before we go any further, he ran a 4.53 for a 265-pound guy. Pretty solid 40 time. Kind of reminds me of Ziggy Ansah from last year for the Lions. He ran, actually it wasn't quite that fast. I think he was more in the 4.68 area. But Michael Prosser, we'll go to you first.
Oh, where do I begin? All right. First off, before I get started, in no way, shape, or form is what I'm about to say any sort of slight towards Jadeveon Clowney. Nobody,
yes,
whether you're a Carolina fan, a Clemson fan, a Florida State fan, a University of Toledo fan, you can't displace the fact that this kid is a tremendous talent. I can't do it. I watched the kid, for the past 3 years that he's been in Columbia. Yes, his Gamecocks have bested my Tigers 5 straight years. I get that. You can't displace this kid's talent. However, when D. Ford of the SEC champion Auburn Tigers calls you, and I quote, "You play like a blind dog in a meat market," something's wrong. There have been talks about his motor. Maybe he's not a high motor guy. It's highly possible. But Ford in general says that Ford thinks he's more technical. Ford's 10.5 sacks obviously destroyed Clowney's. I think it was like 3 sacks this year. Granted, Clowney had the foot injury. Not sure how that whole thing is. D. Ford had said that since he's a little bit smaller, look at guys like Von Miller, Elvis Dumervil, Robert Mathis, guys that he named as pass rushers, that he feels like D. Ford could fit that bill. It's possible. When you look at Clowney's size, obviously
the 40 time is impressive. He's got along the same measurement lines. Clowney's a 6'6", 274. J.J. Watt, 6'5", 289. Greg Hardy, the Kraken, my boy, 6'4", 290. So he's along those lines. But when you get out bench pressed by a kicker and Brady Quinn did more bench press reps at 24 than Jadeveon Clowney's 21 when Brady Quinn went through the combine. He's as physical of an athletic beast as he is. He's such an enigma to scouts that if Houston does take him at number 1, is he going to be like the next Mario Edwards? And people are going to question, was that the right decision? When they took Mario Edwards at number 1, why didn't they take Reggie
Mario
Bush?
Williams.
Mario
Edwards
Williams,
is still
that
Florida
guy.
State.
Thank you, that guy. I just had one
You're
cup
welcome.
of coffee today, so I'm still a little. But with what Houston has so many problems right now, it's almost along the lines of if taking Clowney is going to be the best thing for the organization. Do you want a guy that's going to come in there and be probably a tremendous, tandem with J.J. Watt that could rival along the lines of maybe a Greg Hardy and Charles Johnson in Carolina, who's arguably the best, 2 best defensive ends in the country. But, I'm not even not being biased there or anything.
You were walking the tightrope with Jim Ricalto just now.
To say that he's, a physical freak of nature is an understatement. He's very talented. He's a South Carolina native, so that's obviously near and dear to my heart.
Well, let's let Joe get a word in here. Let's see what Joe has to say about Clowney.
Jadeveon Clowney is not going to be the first defensive player taken.
Ooh,
I'm going to lead with that.
Wow.
Okay. You got my attention.
But before I get into it, shout out to down and distance Brett Krummenacker, big Pittsburgh fan. Aaron Donald, huge showing at the combine. 285-pound defensive tackle, 4.68.40. That's pretty close to Clowney's speed, honestly. The first defensive player taken in this draft will be Buffalo's Khalil Mack. I'm telling you that right now, on the record.
Mark, hey, you heard it here, folks. Khalil Mack.
Where to start with this guy? Granted, I do go to the University of Buffalo, so I have gotten to watch Mack play a couple of times, which not a lot of people can say. But if you want to watch any tape of him, go to YouTube, find the highlights from the Ohio State season opener this year. This dude is a monster. He is incredibly hardworking. He's always pushing himself to get better. He ran a 4.65 in the 40, 23 bench press reps, so he's got that side as well. He's a monster at pass rushing. He's developed a whole arsenal of moves. He can drop back into pass coverage. And he weighed in at 251 pounds, so if teams want him to, he could probably bulk up a little bit more to 260, play some defensive end in a 4-3. I mean, this guy could go – I don't think he's going 1-2. I mean, Mike Mayock says that he wants Mack to go number 1 to Houston. I don't think that's happening. But, 3 to Jacksonville, they need defensive pass rush help. If they decide they don't like Clowney, then, maybe he slots in there. I don't think he falls lower than 9 to the Buffalo Bills for sure.
Well, is he going to need to the one thing I'm questioning is at 250 and some change, is he going to have to play the defensive end position? Can he play defensive tackle? I mean, do teams want to?
No.
Actually, the better question is, do teams want to? Because you're talking about Jacksonville. Does a team that needs to have a cornerstone on their defensive line want to start with an undersized defensive tackle?
Well, the interesting thing about Jacksonville is that their head coach Gus Bradley came from Seattle with Pete Carroll, and if you look at Seattle's defense, they run one defensive end with either Chris Clemens, Bruce Irvin, one of those guys. That's an undersized defensive end that's right about max size, 6'3", 250. So he could fit in perfectly right there, I think. Going back to Clowney, though, because that's, the focus of this topic, people talk about his work ethic. I'm inclined to say, a little bit of that could be chalked up to just draft people trying to knock the unanimous top prospect in this draft. the guy was a foregone conclusion all season to be a top 3 pick. All he had to lose was, make sure he didn't get hurt and didn't hurt his draft stock too much. And to be honest, I don't think he did. I think the lowest he falls is to number 6 with Atlanta. If he goes to a team like that with Matt Ryan, they get Julio Jones back on offense. That's a team that's dangerous on that side of the ball. You had Clowney on defense. That's a team that could make the jump right back to the playoffs, or they should be.
Well, that's where he said he wants. He was wishing if the Falcons would trade
He
up.
wants to go to the Falcons.
So they had to shot him. I would love for him to fall to 10 to the Detroit Lions. We'll take him.
Ansah and Clowney next week. Oh man.
Oh, it'd be out of control.
That would be scary.
So let's jump into this next one, which is we'll switch the script a little bit here, and we'll jump into the MLB. Because if David Whitlock was here, he'd be mad that we weren't talking about more baseball. So let's talk about the big topic with Major League Baseball in the past few days, and that's them banning or taking away the home plate collisions, which in essence isn't really even them banning or taking away the home plate collisions. It's basically saying the runners can't change their path for a collision. The catchers can't block the plate if they don't have the ball ready to make the play, et cetera, et cetera. Are we shocked? I'm not. I mean, sports in general have been looking for a way for the past decade and some change to make these games safer, especially in the past 3 years with the NFL and all its concussions and this and that. So I'm not at all surprised by this change. How do you guys think that this affects? I mean, some of the players have spoken out. They disagree. Obviously, players disagree about everything. How is this going to affect the game of baseball? Little? A lot? Is it negative? Is it positive? We'll start with you, Joe.
Honestly, I don't think it's going to have as big of a deal as they think it is. It'll reduce the number of huge collisions, because the big part that you said is that catchers can't block the plate unless they have the ball already. I think that was big, and minimizing the amount of injuries. Like what happened to Buster Posey screwing up his ankle. I can't think of any other big ones off the top of my head right now. But honestly, I think it's good for the game. I think, player safety, rah-rah, go for it.
Well, and it is. It's really what they're banning here is they're not. I mean, a lot of these article headlines I'm seeing are misleading. They're not banning at the plate collisions. They're banning guys from going out of their way to make a needless collision.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't change you can't. Why would you do that anyways? I don't even understand. Like, I mean, I get
they want to be hockey players. That's why. Go for the big hit.
If you don't like the guy, etc. To me, in my personal opinion, like the catcher always seems like the sitting duck anyways. So for him to be like, I want to block the plate, I understand to stop a run potentially, but it feels to me, and I'm admittedly I'm a guy who doesn't watch a lot of baseball, but it seems to me like this is a rule that's a no-brainer. Makes sense anyways. Why have the unnecessary collisions? I don't get anyhow. Michael, let's hear you sound off on this.
Well, when I first heard about this, I kind of freaked out a little bit. Oh my God, they're banning everything. Why? Yeah, I tend to agree with George Brett here. Former Kansas City Royal great. He feels bad about this. I think he was quoted in saying something about it in an article in ESPN I was reading. He was quoted saying, "I'm really bummed that they're taking away the collisions. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a great part of the game." And honestly, I'm kind of with him. I feel kind of cheated here because if you're a guy who's running from third, the score is tied, and it's like the winning run to go to the World Series, and you've got a guy in your way, of course you're going to hit the guy. And I feel like it's going to take I feel like we're going to see almost like a season-defining moment because of this. Like, let's say, okay,
two teams are going to be, battling for the last spot in the playoffs to go to the wild card, and it's going to come down to a collisional play at the plate. Somebody's season is going to get screwed because of this rule. And I don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that. But, is this going to be, granted, this is only a trial season that they're going to do this. For the 2014 season, they may go into it a little bit more next season. They may take it back a little bit for next season, depending on how this season goes. So I think it's going to be interesting for everybody, not just players, but for fans in general, to see how this goes along with them. And I mean, this might be another, defining moment in Bud Selig's career as commissioner of Major League Baseball. I mean, this could be huge. This could be nothing. It's up in the air right now. I mean, I think first day of training or spring ball is tomorrow, if I remember reading correctly. I think Detroit and Atlanta play tomorrow, so that's really excited about that. So I'm going to see how that goes. I want to see how that goes in spring ball, and if guys are conscious about that there. Because, I mean, you're taught from the beginning, guys at the plate, if it's going to score you a run, hit it. You've seen a lot of great collisions. Obviously, the thing with Buster Posey, that really sucked for him. And it was not cool to see as a baseball fan somebody lying there on the ground. I know careers have been ended because of collisions like this. I can't remember what the guy's name was in the All-Star game that got hit by Pete Rose. But it really tore his knee apart and ended his career. So I can see why they're trying to do it. If it gets out of hand, though, this season, it might cause some uproar. So that'll be something that we all need to watch.
But they're not saying that you can't do it, Michael. They're simply saying that you can't. I mean, as the runner, you can collide.
It avoids the malicious intent.
Yeah, you can collide as much as you want as a runner. I mean, if the catcher, has the ball and is blocking the plate, don't put on the brakes, slam into him, gear it up. I mean,
but I got a feeling that there's going to be an umpire somewhere that's going to think that malicious intent is this when it really wasn't that. And I know
that's going to be the problem.
I know they're going to be able to use instant replay for it to judge like that. And I mean, it's all going to be a judgment call. So that's I can see what they're trying to do. It might, I don't know. There's just something that I can't really find the words for it. But there's something that I just feel like it's going to change something.
Nobody likes change. I mean, as a sports fan, a sports purist, people don't like to see change, especially in a sport that they love. The thing is the judgment calls, when they're not always black and white, and in this instance, there's a gray area because you have a judgment call. It's the same thing with wide receivers collecting themselves, possession, getting up when they catch the ball in the end zone, being different than a running back who just has to simply break the plane, or a player running versus a player receiving. Judgment call, judgment call, judgment call. If you're Calvin Johnson, it's never a catch. Anyone else, we don't know. So, yeah, that gray area does pose a problem sometimes, but we'll see. I think the fact that they're saying, as the runner, you can't be heading straight for the plate. Oh, there's the catcher behind the plate. I'm going to go nail him. I feel like that's probably worth changing. So, Joe, unless you have anything else on this collision topic, we can head right into our last one.
I think it's pretty clear cut, honestly. If the runner goes out of his way to hit the catcher, then he's out. And if the catcher tries to block the plate without the ball, then the guy's safe. I mean, it's going to be a judgment call, but at least it's a bang-bang decision one way or the other.
Imagine the base runner just starts pointing out guys he wants to hit. I'm going to hit the center fielder. We're going, nailed him. Right? I mean, then we just lose control. So
I'd love to see that. That'd be great.
This last topic's about as much of a home court collision or a home plate collision as anything, although it's NFL, and we're talking Jim Harbaugh. I'm calling this the Jim Harbaugh saga for sure. I mean, reportedly they were trying to pull a trade for Jim Harbaugh to go to Cleveland to the Browns. And apparently everybody in the world wants Jim Harbaugh to be their coach. I'm hearing Texas. I've heard USC is the new one.
The Dolphins wanted him too before he went to the 49ers.
And I think they still do want him too. Is the thing they want to go after him next year. So, for me personally, I'm a Lions fan. We just had a head coach who shares a lot of the same qualities as Jim Schwartz, in my personal opinion, or as Jim Harbaugh in Jim Schwartz, in my personal opinion. I think the guys are the same kind of fiery mentality. I'm not saying they coach the same. I'm saying they kind of act the same personality-wise. I don't understand why this guy's so coveted. Yes, he's turned San Fran around. He's won some games. But I don't think it's as much his coaching in San Fran as it was not having the Samurai as your coach anymore. Because let's just say one thing, and that is that the Samurai had a talented team that he did nothing with. So Mike Singletary, I mean, I loved you to death as a player, but I feel like you were one of the worst coaches I've ever seen. And Harbaugh just kind of snuck in, and all of a sudden everybody was like, Harbaugh's the best coach we've ever seen, and yada, 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 making me sick to my stomach. Because while Harbaugh's done a good job, don't get me wrong, I don't think it was as much him as it was the fact that there just was no more Mike Singletary. So let's jump into this. We'll go to you first, Michael. How do you feel about this whole Jim Harbaugh saga?
Well, when I first heard about it, I thought it was funny. I mean, good for you. I mean, I get it. Cleveland, you're trying to be ballsy. I get that. Good for you guys. But did you really think it was going to happen? I mean, honestly. Plus, the one thing I don't understand is why would you trade? I don't get the whole trading picks for a coach thing. I mean, the coach is not a player. He's not under contract as a player. I don't think he should be traded for, draft picks to do that. But, I applaud Cleveland for being ballsy on this. They had zero chance whatsoever to get Jim Harbaugh. And, we got people talking about Cleveland again. So, I had to see this coming. Cleveland, I kind of figured Cleveland was going to do something stupid. First you fire Rob Chudzinski, then you think about drafting Johnny Manziel, who would have fit Rob Chudzinski's style of play. Now you're going to, you have a coup to try to bring Jim Harbaugh to Cleveland. I mean, LeBron wanted out. LeBron left. How long would it have been for Jim Harbaugh to pull LeBron and leave too?
Cleveland fans are used to disappointment.
This is hilarious.
Yeah.
Paul Brown is rolling over in his grave right now because of this. I mean, this is just. I'm still laughing about this. This is hilarious.
All right, Joe, your thoughts on the Jim Harbaugh saga?
The Cleveland Browns are just an absolute mess. I really don't think they have any sort of organizational vision or anything like that. What I was reading, though, is that Harbaugh, one of his assistants with San Francisco, is the son of Mike Lombardi, who was now fired from the Browns general manager position. So this was all before Mike Pettin was hired. They have Pettin now. They're done with that. Jimmy Haslam in Cleveland. Dude, get your head back on straight. I have no idea what you're thinking, what you're doing with this Cleveland team, but they got some good individual talent, and you got to put something together sooner. You're going to be back on the open market soon, too.
I'm going to make a sign soon that says already, I'm free Josh Gordon. I want the kid out of there. They're going to waste him.
This is the funniest thing about the whole thing, is Cleveland is now the subject of a draft movie that's coming up in April starring Kevin Costner. And
yes,
if I'm not mistaken,
I forgot about
Arian
that.
Foster is in this movie as well.
Oh,
so
Lord.
as if it couldn't get any, I don't want to say worse or better for Cleveland, because apparently in this movie Kevin Costner is the general manager for the Cleveland Browns.
Yep.
And he has to decide on like a first pick thing, and I'm anxious to see this movie. I'm really excited about it.
Well, let me say
the funny
this.
thing about that movie is that the Browns end up drafting well.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
And if anybody can save the Cleveland Browns, it's Kevin
Costner,
because he saved
exactly.
Whitney Houston. He saved dry land in Waterworld.
Yeah.
He reunited he reestablished the United States postal system and post-apocalyptic. Come on, I mean, he saved the Native Americans. I mean, this Kevin Costner.
But he couldn't save Pompeii. He couldn't save Pompeii. Apparently, Pompeii, the new movie that he apparently
don't tell me about it,
is not getting good reviews.
Spoiler.
It's not getting good reviews. So,
Rotten Tomatoes.
Michael's like, well, this is what happens in the end of Pompeii. So, I guess
what happens at the end of Pompeii, historic history actually happens, and the city freezes over.
But I don't want to know the
dies.
details, though. I don't want to know the details of the movie itself, because I kind of want to see that. Michael, you're breaking my heart now telling me you got bad reviews. Well, I think it's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you for tuning in to our third episode of This Week in Sports. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can find all of our sports writing work at www.sports-kings.com. You can also find us on Twitter at RealSportsKings, and you can find us on Facebook. Just type into your search for our Sports-Kings. Give us a like, interact, invoke some conversation with us on our YouTube page. Tell your friends, and until next time, have a great day.
We love fans.